Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to connect with you. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from right now. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next story. And if this resonates with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it too.
The text came through while I was still connected to the IV. Don't bother coming back Monday. Your position has been eliminated. Marcus. I stared at my phone. The beeping of the heart monitor suddenly louder in the sterile hospital room. My chest tightened, but not from the panic attack that had brought me here 6 hours ago. I'd worked at Northbridge Construction for 3 years. 3 years of 60-hour weeks, missed dinners with my daughter, and covering for Marcus Caldwell's business trips that everyone knew were golf weekends. I'd built that office from chaos into something functional. And now, while I sat in the ER with stress-induced heart palpitations, he was firing me via text. The nurse, Patricia, noticed my face. "Everything okay, honey?" "I just lost my job," I whispered. She frowned. "While you're in the hospital, that can't be legal." I thought about my 8-year-old daughter, Chloe, staying with my neighbor. About the mortgage payment due next week. About the health insurance I'd just lost. "Try to stay calm," Patricia said. "Sometimes the worst things lead to the best discoveries." I had no idea how right she was. Monday morning, I drove to the office anyway. Not because I thought Marcus would change his mind, but because I'd left my daughter's artwork on my desk. 3 years of crayon drawings weren't staying behind for his next victim to throw away. The parking lot was nearly empty at 7:30 a.m. Marcus's silver BMW sat in his reserved spot, which surprised me. He usually rolled in around 10, reeking of expensive cologne and self-importance. The office felt different in the early light. Quieter, like it was holding secrets. I packed my personal items quickly, stuffing everything into the cardboard box I'd brought. Chloe's hand-drawn Mother's Day card went on top, the one where she'd written, "Best Mom Ever," in purple crayon. That's when I heard voices from Marcus's office. The door was cracked open, and 2 men were talking in low, urgent tones. I recognized Marcus's voice, but the other man sounded older, more authoritative. "The safety inspections are due this week," the stranger said. "If they find what we both know they'll find, this whole operation shuts down." "I told you I handled it," Marcus replied. "The inspector's been paid." My blood went cold. I stood frozen by my desk, listening to the conversation drifting from Marcus's office. The stranger's voice carried a slight southern accent, and he sounded worried. 3 workers have been hospitalized this month alone," he said. "That Martinez kid almost lost his life from those chemical fumes. We can't keep covering this up." "We're not covering anything up," Marcus snapped. "We're managing a situation. The alternative is losing everything, the contracts, the business, the money. Those safety protocols exist for a reason. Those safety protocols cost money we don't have. We cut corners or we go under." I realized I was holding my breath. I'd wondered why so many workers had been getting sick lately. Why Juan Martinez had collapsed last month and spent a week in intensive care. Why the newer construction sites always smelled like chemicals that made your eyes water. "The inspector comes Thursday," the stranger continued. "If Detective Rodriguez keeps digging into Martinez's case." "Rodriguez won't find anything," Marcus interrupted. "The medical records have been adjusted, the safety logs are clean, everything points to worker error, not environmental hazards." My hands started shaking. They weren't just cutting corners, they were making workers sick and covering it up. The stranger's voice grew more agitated. "You adjusted medical records?" "Marcus, that's not just fraud anymore. That's survival," Marcus cut him off. "You think I'm going to prison because some worker couldn't handle a little chemical exposure?" Juan Martinez wasn't just some worker. He was a naturalized citizen with 3 kids and a wife who cleaned houses to help pay their bills. I'd met his family at the company picnic last summer. "The families are starting to ask questions," the stranger said. "Maria Santos called my office yesterday. Her husband's been coughing blood for 2 weeks. "Then we need to be smarter about site rotation," Marcus replied coldly. "Keep the workers moving before they get too much exposure, and make sure the sick ones don't talk to each other." I felt sick. This wasn't just about cutting safety corners. This was systematic contamination of construction workers, and Marcus was covering it up by bribing inspectors and falsifying medical records. Speaking of which, I fired that nosy assistant yesterday. Taylor was getting too close to the financial records. That's when I realized I hadn't been fired for missing work. I'd been fired because I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to see. My mind raced back to last week. I'd been updating the payroll files when I noticed strange payments to someone called Clearwater Environmental Services. When I asked Marcus about it, he'd gotten defensive and told me to focus on my own responsibilities. Now I understood. Clearwater wasn't a legitimate environmental company. "How much did you pay Thompson this time?" the stranger asked, confirming my suspicions. $25,000, Marcus replied. "Same as last month, he knows what's at stake." Thompson. Robert Thompson was the county safety inspector. I'd seen his signature on several reports declaring our job sites safe, reports that clearly weren't accurate if workers were being hospitalized. "What about the woman you fired, Taylor? What if she talks?" "She doesn't know anything concrete," Marcus said dismissively. "Besides, who's going to believe a disgruntled employee over a respected businessman like me? I'll destroy her credibility before she can cause any real damage." The confidence in his voice made my stomach turn. He thought he was untouchable. He thought he could make workers sick, bribe inspectors, falsify records, and face no consequences. He was wrong. "I need to go," the stranger said. "My plane leaves in 2 hours." Footsteps moved toward the door. I waited until I heard a car leave the parking lot before standing up. Through the window, I watched an unfamiliar black sedan drive away, leaving only Marcus's BMW. The office had gone quiet again. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app. I should have done this earlier, but maybe it wasn't too late. I crept closer to Marcus's office. He was on the phone now, speaking in a lower voice than before. "Yeah, it's me. We might have a problem. The Martinez situation is getting attention. Detective Rodriguez called this morning, asking about workplace safety protocols." I pressed myself against the wall next to his doorframe, holding my phone up to record. "No, Thompson's still on board. But that's not the issue. The issue is the workers' comp claims. 3 hospitalizations in 1 month looks suspicious, especially when they all involve respiratory problems from the same type of job site." My stomach dropped. 3 hospitalizations. Juan Martinez was just one of them. "Listen to me carefully," Marcus continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. "I've worked too hard building this company to let some bleeding heart detective destroy everything. We need to make this go away permanently." The way he said permanently sent chills down my spine. "What do you mean permanently?" Marcus said into the phone. "I mean we eliminate the source of the problem. The workers who are talking, the families asking questions, the detective poking around where she doesn't belong." My blood ran cold. He wasn't just talking about covering up evidence anymore. He was talking about silencing people. "Rodriguez has been interviewing workers' families," Marcus continued. "She's building a case. We need to make sure those families understand the consequences of cooperation." I fumbled with my phone, making sure it was still recording. This was evidence of conspiracy, intimidation, maybe worse. "I don't care what it costs. Pay whatever you have to pay. Threaten whoever you have to threaten. But this investigation stops now." There was a long pause while he listened to the caller. "The Santos family is the biggest risk," he said finally. "Roberto's been the most vocal about safety concerns. His wife's been talking to other families, organizing them." "Handle it," Marcus said coldly. "Whatever it takes. Their work permits can be revoked just as easily as they were approved. Make sure they understand that cooperation with police investigations isn't in their best interests." My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. He was threatening to destroy immigrant families' legal status. "I have to go," Marcus said into the phone. "Someone's here." I heard him hanging up and quickly stuffed my phone into my pocket, grabbing my box again. By the time his office door opened, I was walking toward the exit. "Taylor?" His voice was sharp with surprise. "What are you doing here?" I turned, trying to keep my expression neutral despite my racing heart. "Getting my personal items. You fired me, remember?" His eyes narrowed as he looked at the cardboard box in my hands. "Security should have handled that." "It's just some pictures in my coffee mug," I said, hoping my voice sounded steadier than I felt. "I mind everything about this situation," he said, stepping closer. How long have you been here? 5 minutes. I grabbed my stuff and I'm leaving. He studied my face carefully. Good. And Taylor? I hope you understand that anything you might have seen or heard during your employment here is confidential. I never signed an NDA, I said. His smile was cold. Check your employment contract, Section 12, Subsection 4. Violation of confidentiality agreements results in immediate legal action and financial penalties that would destroy someone in your position. I felt my face flush. He was trying to intimidate me. Have a nice life, Taylor, he said. I drove home in a daze, Marcus's threat echoing in my head. By the time I pulled into my driveway, my hands had stopped shaking, but my mind was racing. I had evidence of systematic chemical exposure, bribery, and intimidation. But I also had an 8-year-old daughter to protect and no job to pay our bills. Chloe ran to greet me at the door, her backpack still on from the school bus. Mom, Mrs. Henderson made chocolate chip cookies. Are you okay? I hugged her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. I'm fine, baby. Just tired. Did the mean man at work make you tired again? Sometimes kids saw things more clearly than adults, something like that, but Mommy's gonna fix it. While Chloe did her homework at the kitchen table, I sat with my laptop and started researching. Detective Rodriguez was easy to find. Detective Carmen Rodriguez of the Labor Crimes Division. Her bio said she specialized in workplace safety violations and workers' rights cases. I found news articles about recent investigations into construction site safety. 3 companies had been shut down in the past year for exposing workers to dangerous chemicals. Marcus was right to be worried. If Detective Rodriguez was good at her job, Northbridge Construction was in serious trouble. That evening, after Chloe went to bed, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and started writing everything down. Names, dates, conversations, observations from the past 3 years. Every strange payment I'd processed, every time workers had gotten sick. The Santos family's address was in my old files. Roberto Santos lived just 10 minutes away. I'd sent Christmas cards to their house for the past 2 years as part of the company's employee outreach program. I thought about driving over there to warn them about Marcus's threats. But then I thought about Chloe sleeping upstairs and what Marcus had said about legal action and financial penalties. Instead, I did something that felt safer, but just as important. I created a detailed timeline of events and saved it to a secure cloud account. Then I made copies of every document I'd brought home over the years: payroll records, vendor payments, safety reports. Most importantly, I had the recording of Marcus planning to intimidate witnesses and threaten immigrant families. At 11:47 p.m., I sent an email to Detective Carmen Rodriguez. The subject line read, "Urgent, worker chemical exposure cover-up at Northbridge Construction." Then I sent a second email to the county prosecutor's office, the local newspaper, and the state labor board. By midnight, the truth was out there. I barely slept that night. Every car that passed our house made me jump. Every creak of the old building made me wonder if Marcus had decided I was too dangerous to leave alone. At 6:15 a.m., my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but I answered anyway. "Is this Taylor Morrison?" The voice was female, professional, awake despite the early hour. "Yes." "This is Detective Carmen Rodriguez. I received your email last night. We need to talk immediately." My heart started pounding. "Okay. When and where? Can you meet me at the Central District Police Station in an hour? And Miss Morrison, don't tell anyone about this conversation. Don't go home if you think you're being watched. You think I'm in danger?" There was a pause. "Miss Morrison, if even half of what you described in your email is accurate, you're the key witness in a major criminal conspiracy. Yes, you could be in danger." After I hung up, I called my neighbor Mrs. Henderson and asked if she could take Chloe to school. "I have some important business to take care of," I explained. I drove to the police station through the early morning traffic, constantly checking my mirrors for Marcus's BMW. At exactly 7:15 a.m., I walked into the lobby and asked for Detective Rodriguez. Detective Rodriguez was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-30s, with sharp eyes and an all-business demeanor. "Thank you for coming in," she said, leading me to a small interview room. She was thorough. She asked for every detail, every date, every conversation I could remember. I showed her the voice recording from Marcus's office and watched her expression grow darker as she listened. "This recording is excellent evidence," she said when it finished. "But I need you to understand something. What you've stumbled into is bigger than just one construction company cutting corners." She pulled out a thick file folder. "We've been investigating workplace safety violations in the construction industry for 18 months. Northbridge Construction keeps appearing in our investigation, but we haven't been able to get solid evidence until now." "What do you mean, bigger?" "We think there's a network of construction companies working together to suppress safety standards and maximize profits. They share information about which inspectors can be bought, which doctors will falsify medical records, which politicians look the other way." My stomach sank. So Marcus isn't just a local criminal. He's part of something organized. That's what we're trying to prove, and your evidence might be the breakthrough we've needed. She leaned forward. "Coming forward puts you and your family at serious risk. We can arrange protection," Detective Rodriguez continued. "Witness protection services, relocation assistance if necessary. But first, we need to gather more evidence, and for that, we need your help." The room felt suddenly smaller. "What kind of help?" "We need you to go back." "Go back?" I stared at her. "He fired me. I can't just walk into the office." "You're right. We need to be smarter than that." She pulled out her phone and showed me a text message. "This came in this morning from Roberto Santos. His wife Maria received a visit last night from two men claiming to be immigration officers. They told her that cooperating with police investigations could result in deportation proceedings." My blood ran cold. Marcus was already following through on his threats. "The Santos family is terrified," Rodriguez continued. "They want to help, but they can't risk losing their legal status. We need evidence of the intimidation, and we need it fast." "How?" "Marcus doesn't know that you have the recording yet. He thinks you just picked up some personal items and left. If you called him today and said you wanted to negotiate about your employment contract, maybe demand severance pay, he might agree to meet with you." "You want me to wear a wire?" "I want you to get him talking about the intimidation campaign." The idea terrified me, but I thought about Juan Martinez in the hospital, about Maria Santos afraid for her family's safety. "Okay," I said. The plan was simple. I would call Marcus at 2 p.m. and demand a meeting to discuss my severance package. Detective Rodriguez would wire me with a recording device and position backup officers nearby. I spent the morning at the police station going over the plan and practicing with the recording equipment. The device was smaller than I'd expected, just a tiny microphone that clipped to the inside of my shirt collar. At 1:45 p.m., Detective Rodriguez handed me a burner phone. "Use this to call him. We've already traced his location. He's at the office." My hands were shaking as I entered Marcus's number. He answered on the second ring. "Northbridge Construction," Marcus speaking. "It's Taylor. We need to talk." There was a pause. "I thought I was clear yesterday. Your employment has been terminated." "I know what you're doing, Marcus. The safety violations, the bribes, the intimidation. I have evidence." His voice went cold. "I don't know what you think you heard, but you're mistaken. I heard you planning to threaten the Santos family. I heard you talking about making Detective Rodriguez's investigation go away permanently. I heard everything." A longer pause this time. "Where are you right now?" "Somewhere safe, but I'm willing to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" $100,000 in severance pay, and I disappear. Meet me at Riverside Park in 1 hour. Come alone. Riverside Park was Detective Rodriguez's choice. Open space, multiple exit routes, and good sightlines for surveillance. I sat on a bench near the children's playground at exactly 3 p.m., watching families enjoy the sunny afternoon, while my heart hammered against my ribs. Marcus's BMW pulled into the parking lot 5 minutes later. He walked toward me slowly, looking around carefully for signs of surveillance. "You look nervous, Taylor," he said, sitting down beside me. "I should be. What you're involved in could get people seriously hurt." "People get hurt every day," he replied coldly. "Construction is a dangerous business. Accidents happen." "These aren't accidents. You're systematically exposing workers to toxic chemicals and covering up the evidence." "Prove it." I turned to face him. The recording I made yesterday morning, you and your friend discussing bribing Inspector Thompson, planning to intimidate witness families. That's felony conspiracy. His expression didn't change, but I saw his jaw tighten. You think you're the first employee who's tried to extort money from me? What happened to the others? His smile was terrifying. They learned to mind their own business. Is that a threat? It's a fact. Do you know how easy it would be to make you and your daughter disappear? The recording device under my collar felt suddenly warm against my skin. Marcus leaned back on the bench, perfectly calm despite threatening to harm me and my daughter. Here's your choice, Taylor. You can walk away from this right now, take your daughter, and move to another state. I'll even help with relocation expenses. $25,000. And if I don't, then you'll join Juan Martinez in the hospital. Except you won't be as lucky as he was. My throat went dry. What do you mean? Martinez's chemical exposure wasn't an accident. We needed to test how much the workers could handle before they got sick enough to cause problems. Martinez volunteered to work a double shift in the high exposure area. I felt sick. You deliberately exposed him? We gathered valuable data. Now we know the exact exposure levels that cause hospitalization. We can keep future exposures just below that threshold. You're talking about human experimentation. I'm talking about risk management. The profit margins on these contracts require cutting costs somewhere. Safety equipment is expensive. It's cheaper to replace sick workers than to protect healthy ones. People aren't disposable, Marcus. Poor people are, he said matter-of-factly. Especially immigrant workers who can't complain without risking deportation. They're the perfect test subjects, desperate enough to work under any conditions. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and stood up. This conversation is over. Marcus started walking toward his car but stopped and turned back. Oh, and Taylor? Next time you want to record someone, make sure your shirt collar isn't reflecting light off the microphone. My blood turned to ice. He knew about the wire. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? I've been dealing with law enforcement surveillance for years. That little device under your collar might as well have a neon sign. I stood up slowly, my legs suddenly unsteady. The police know where I am. I'm sure they do, but they can't protect you from everything. He pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. My associates have been watching your house since this morning. Your neighbor, Mrs. Mo Henderson, picked up a little girl around 3:15 p.m. Don't you dare? Relax, nothing's going to happen to her as long as you make the smart choice. He put his phone away and smiled. But if that recording you made somehow finds its way to Detective Rodriguez, well, accidents happen to children every day. You're threatening my daughter? I'm offering you a simple business transaction. $25,000 and safe passage out of the state in exchange for your silence. My hands were shaking with rage. You have until 7:46 tomorrow morning to decide. Why 7:46? That's when the charges get set off at the Rodriguez house. I called Detective Rodriguez immediately, my fingers fumbling with the phone. She answered on the first ring. Taylor, how did it go? They're going to harm you. He said something about charges being set off at your house at 7:46 tomorrow morning. Slow down. What exactly did he say? I repeated the conversation word for word, my voice shaking. He knows about the wire. He's been planning this whole thing, and he's threatened my daughter. Stay where you are. Don't move. I'm sending units to your location right now. What about Chloe? We have units watching your daughter too. She's safe at your neighbor's house, and we've got plainclothes officers positioned on your street. 2 police cars pulled into the park within minutes. Detective Rodriguez was in the passenger seat of the first one. She walked over to me with a grim expression. Taylor, I need you to listen carefully. The recording device worked perfectly. We got everything Marcus said, including his confession to deliberately exposing Juan Martinez and his threats against you and your daughter. That's good, right? It's excellent evidence. But it also confirms what we suspected. This conspiracy goes much higher than just Marcus. She handed me a bulletproof vest. Put this on. We're taking you and your daughter into protective custody immediately. For how long? Until we can arrest everyone involved. The safe house was a nondescript apartment across town. Detective Rodriguez explained that it was used for high-risk witness protection cases. Chloe was already there with Mrs. Henderson, playing with a puzzle while two female officers kept watch. "Mommy," she ran to hug me. "The nice ladies said we're having a sleepover party." "That's right, baby, just for tonight." I looked at Mrs. Henderson over Chloe's head. "I told her it was a special police program," Mrs. Henderson whispered. "She thinks it's an adventure." Detective Rodriguez pulled me aside. "We've evacuated my house and set up surveillance. If Marcus's people try to plant explosives, we'll catch them in the act." "What if they don't show up?" "Then we use the evidence you helped us gather to arrest Marcus and work our way up the chain. Either way, this ends tomorrow." "What do you need me to do?" "I need you to send Marcus an email. Tell him you've decided to take his offer and leave town. Make it seem like you're scared and ready to run." I sat down at a laptop and composed the email. "Marcus, I've thought about what you said. You're right. I can't risk my daughter's safety. I'll take the $25,000 and disappear. How do we make the exchange?" I sent it at 9:23 p.m. His response came back within 10 minutes. "Smart choice. Wire transfer will be completed once you confirm receipt of departure tickets." But I wasn't planning to wait. While everyone else focused on catching Marcus's bomb team, I was thinking about something else. Something that could end this conspiracy once and for all. At 11:30 p.m., I quietly accessed my email account on the laptop. I opened a new email and began typing. The recipient list included the county prosecutor, the state labor board, the local newspaper, and 3 television stations. But most importantly, it included the FBI's public corruption tip line. The subject line read, "Evidence of attempted violence, conspiracy, and public corruption, Northbridge Construction." In the email, I attached the audio recording of Marcus confessing to deliberately exposing Juan Martinez to harmful chemicals. I included the photos I'd taken of the suspicious financial records. I provided the names of everyone involved: Marcus, Inspector Thompson, the unknown Southern man. Most importantly, I included a detailed timeline showing the pattern of worker hospitalizations, the dates of suspicious payments, and the timing of Marcus's threats against witness families. At the bottom, I wrote, "If anything happens to me or my family, this information should be investigated immediately. The people involved have threatened violence against law enforcement and witnesses." I scheduled the email to send automatically at 7:46 a.m., the exact time Marcus had mentioned for the attack on Detective Rodriguez's house. After I sent the email, I woke up Detective Rodriguez and told her what I'd done. "That was smart thinking," she said, "but also dangerous. If Marcus finds out about that email before we arrest him, then we better make sure he doesn't get the chance." She made some phone calls, and within an hour the safe house was buzzing with activity. Federal agents, state investigators, and local police were coordinating what they called Operation Cleanslate, simultaneous arrests of everyone involved in the conspiracy. At 5 a.m., Detective Rodriguez woke me up with coffee and news. "We caught them," she said with a smile. 3 men tried to plant explosives at my house at 2:17 a.m. They're all in custody, and one of them is already talking. The man who was talking turned out to be Marcus's mysterious business partner, William Ashford, owner of 5 construction companies across 3 states. "Ashford gave us everything," Detective Rodriguez explained as we watched the morning news coverage. "The entire network, the payoffs, the systematic worker exposure, all of it." The news anchor was reporting live from outside Northbridge Construction. Federal agents raided the offices early this morning, arresting owner Marcus Caldwell on charges including conspiracy, racketeering, attempted violence, and public corruption. Chloe sat beside me eating cereal and watching cartoons on a tablet with headphones. She had no idea that her mother had helped bring down a criminal conspiracy. What about the workers? The families who were threatened? The Santos family has agreed to testify. 3 months later, I sat in federal court watching Marcus Caldwell sentenced to 25 years in prison. He'd pled guilty to conspiracy, racketeering, and attempted violence in exchange for a deal that took more serious charges off the table. Inspector Thompson got 15 years, William Ashford got 30 years and agreed to forfeit assets worth $18 million. The money from the asset forfeiture went into a fund for the exposed workers and their families. Juan Martinez was able to afford the specialized treatment he needed for his chemically damaged lungs. The Santos family received legal assistance to secure their immigration status permanently. "How do you feel?" Detective Rodriguez asked me as we left the courthouse. "Relieved? Exhausted? Proud?" I looked at Chloe, who was holding my hand and asking if we'd get ice cream. "Mostly grateful that it's over." "It's not completely over. The FBI investigation has expanded to include construction companies in 8 states. Your evidence helped expose the biggest workplace safety conspiracy in decades." That evening, I sat at my new kitchen table and opened my laptop. I had a job interview the next morning with a company that specialized in workplace safety consulting. I'd also been offered a book deal to tell my story. The working title was "The Email That Brought Down a Conspiracy." But first, I wanted to write something else. A letter to my daughter, to be opened when she was old enough to understand what had really happened. The letter to my daughter ended up being 10 pages long. I wrote about courage, about standing up for people who can't protect themselves, about the responsibility that comes with witnessing injustice. I also wrote about fear, how I'd been terrified every moment from the time I heard Marcus planning to intimidate families until the moment he was sentenced. But then, I realized, I wrote, that if I didn't fight back, other families would suffer. Other workers would get sick. Sometimes being brave isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing what's right anyway. 6 months after Marcus's sentencing, I received a package in the mail with no return address. Inside was a hand-carved wooden figurine of an angel, along with a note written in Spanish, "Para la mujer que nos salvó," for the woman who saved us. It was signed by Maria Santos and 12 other families. I put the angel on my desk at my new job. Every time I looked at it, I remembered why I'd made that phone call to Detective Rodriguez, why I'd worn that wire, why I'd sent that email at 7:46 a.m. Not because I was a hero, because I was a mother, a neighbor, a human being who couldn't stay silent when people were being hurt. The job interview had gone well. I was now a senior investigator with Rodriguez and Associates, a workplace safety consulting firm. Our first client was a construction company in Phoenix where workers had been reporting mysterious respiratory problems. The Phoenix investigation took 4 months, but we built an airtight case. 8 executives were arrested, including a city councilman who'd been taking bribes to ignore safety violations. 43 workers received medical treatment and compensation for their injuries. By the end of my first year with Rodriguez and Associates, we'd investigated 12 companies and helped prosecute 37 people involved in workplace safety fraud. I kept all the news clippings in a scrapbook, not because I was proud of the attention, but because I wanted Chloe to understand that one person really could make a difference. The book came out that fall. 7:46 a.m., How One Email Exposed a Conspiracy. All the proceeds went to the Worker Safety Foundation, a nonprofit that provided legal assistance to employees facing retaliation for reporting safety violations. I did interviews with 3 television stations and a dozen newspapers. The question everyone asked was the same. What made you decide to fight back instead of taking the money and staying quiet? My daughter, I always answered. I couldn't teach her that money is more important than people's lives. I couldn't teach her that it's okay to stay silent when people are being hurt. The interview aired on a Sunday night. Monday morning, I received 17 emails from workers at different companies, all describing similar patterns of safety violations and intimidation. Carmen and I looked at each other across our desks. "Ready for case number 13?" she asked. 2 years after that email at 7:46 a.m., I stood in the auditorium at Chloe's school, watching her receive an award for a science project about workplace safety. She'd interviewed 3 workers who'd been helped by our investigations. "My mom taught me that being scared is okay," she said into the microphone. "But letting other people get hurt because you're scared is not okay." In the audience, Maria Santos wiped tears from her eyes. Juan Martinez, fully recovered and working for a new construction company with proper safety protocols, applauded proudly. After the ceremony, Chloe ran up to me with her ribbon. "Did I do good, Mommy?" You did perfect, baby. I'm so proud of you. Are you proud because I won the award? I'm proud because you understand that helping people is more important than being safe. That night, after Chloe went to bed, I sat at my laptop and opened my email. 3 new cases had come in that day. I thought about Marcus Caldwell in his federal prison cell. I thought about that morning when I'd sent the email at 7:46 a.m. How terrified I'd been. How uncertain about whether I was doing the right thing. Now I knew. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is send one email at exactly the right moment. I opened a new message and began typing. Dear FBI Public Corruption Division, I am writing to report systematic safety violations at multiple workplaces. I hit send at 7:46 a.m. Some habits are worth keeping. My mind raced back to last week. I'd been updating the payroll files when I noticed strange payments to someone called Clearwater Environmental Services. When I asked Marcus about it, he'd gotten defensive and told me to focus on my own responsibilities.